Hey, hi everyone. I'm Ronak Doshi, and I have my colleague Nitish Mittal. We are doing a series on our top expectations from Adobe Summit that we both are going to be attending in a month. So this is part two of that series. And Nitish, question for you. The Adobe Services Peak, the last iteration was in 2022, a fantastic success for us in terms of understanding the services ecosystem around Adobe, and we had 24 leading suppliers featured on this one. So I know you and team are doing the second iteration of it. So would love to hear about your expectations from Adobe Summit with respect to our services providers and the consulting providers and design agencies out there.
Absolutely. And you're right, Ronak. When we did this about 18 months ago, it was really based on a lot of end user interest around understanding the services ecosystem and the mushrooming ecosystem around Adobe. Because as we discussed in the previous conversation, the product portfolio has really expanded. So client expectations are evolving as well. And as we refresh that and we're in the middle of doing that, the findings will be out hopefully in the next month or two. I think there are two clear expectations from a partner perspective. And partners, as you said, are system integrators, consulting firms, and agencies who are building on the Adobe stack and they are investing meaningfully on the Adobe stack. And the two things they're telling us more often than not. The first is, given the proliferation in the Adobe stack and the products and the that are now a part of its portfolio across marketing, commerce, creative, design, and so on, how does Adobe also evolve its partner ecosystem aligned to those tracks? So a lot of them are now, for instance, telling us, typically, as you know, at the Adobe Summit, you'll have a partner day. A lot of them now feel one partner day is not enough just to encompass all these different specializations, which is in some ways a great problem to have for Adobe, but also I think an interesting opportunity to evolve its partnership triaging and how they educate partners, how do they invest in partner success. So I think partners would want more portfolio specific access, training, investments, and just attention. I think that's one thing that's emerging. The second thing that's emerging is, and this is not just the Adobe ecosystem, we see it in lot a lot of the maybe the larger technology firms which are creating this wherewithal, whether it's cloud or data or experience, is swim lanes which are specific to partners based on markets. So what that means is, how do you incentivize but also create swim lanes for partners in specific industries? Do you work with a different set of partners in different geographies, smaller agencies here in Europe, maybe for specific areas like brand versus document versus experience? So I think the swim lane for partners, which I think is becoming an important way of
Yeah.
differentiation, I think those are the two big expectations often partners state to us.
Okay. Makes sense. And I think this, if I have to add something to it, one thing that I would definitely add is the product or the technology is as good as the users of it. So I think the partners are also expecting, which is that change management aspect of it, which is how do you support and drive and scale that change management as we look at it. Because one of the things we've seen is there's a lot of transition which is happening when they use these tools and solutions in the broader tech ecosystem or they're in their data digital ecosystem, and helping them through that journey is going to be important. And then that's where this swim lanes that you spoke about makes more sense for me is if I'm working with mid-size enterprises, and that's where my expertise as a partner. I want Adobe to be working with me to kind of drive that change versus working with somebody else, because then I don't build that specialization, and you need that specialization in the market from a change perspective to drive adoption. So that's
Yeah.
something to add from my end. But again, thank you.
No, thanks for sharing this. It's all about the ecosystem. So I'm very excited, as I'm sure you are, to see what Adobe has in store. And I'm sure we'll come back to share our findings on this topic.
Look forward to it.